this is what's really scaring people right now. This may be the next big scare, the big fallout, and that is Genesis Trading, or aka Genesis Lending. Okay, so they are warning that without new funding, they could also go bankrupt. Okay, now in case you didn't know, Genesis Trading and Lending is part of DCG, Digital Currency Group, led by Barry Shilbert. And DCG is absolutely monstrous. If you look at their portfolio, DCG has invested in Abra, has invested in Akala, BitGo, that's a big one, BitPay, that's a big one, Blockstream, that's a huge one, Brave Browser, Chainalysis, Circle, the creator of USDC, Coinbase, CoinDesk, you know, the list goes on and on and on. This is how big Dapper Labs, which is behind some of the biggest NFTs, Decentraland, they have all been invested by even Etherscan. Fireblocks, which is one of the biggest custodians out there. Flare Network, FTX. This is how big their portfolios. Hedera Hashgraph, Horizon Labs. Doesn't mean that they own all these companies. Kraken, Ledger. But they have invested a lot of money into a lot of crypto projects. Just want to show you guys how big they actually are. So people are very worried that Genesis is going to go bankrupt. The bigger fear is the other companies that DCG owns, specifically Grayscale. Grayscale, which controls Bitcoin, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, are they going to be forced to sell Bitcoin to cover the losses or the holes in Genesis Trading? That is what everyone is worried about right now. So it could be a double whammy, right? And that's not what we want. What got us here, right? Why is Genesis now, having problems? What ties did it have with FTX, right? Well, let me lead up to that. First of all, they're seeking $1 billion in liquidity. Now, it's been reported that they have downgraded that $1 billion to $500 million because, quite frankly, no one is bidding. No one is interested in helping. So they have reached out to Binance and Apollo. Binance was rumored that they were interested and they may bail them out, but according to some reports, Binance decided to leave them alone too, fearful that their business can create a conflict of interest down the line, meaning that owning a lending company, right, may bring probably more scrutiny with a lot of regulators. So they may not want to have that. And it seems like right now that may be the case. It's been reported that they can't find anyone. No one wants to give them that $1 billion or even the $500 million, the $500 million, right? You figure there should be someone out there that is willing to take a chance to try to save them, right? This is a US-based company. This is one that's highly regulated and looked at and under the umbrella of DCG, which is absolutely huge. So you figure it's not being run by the likes of another SBF, right, or Caroline. These are professional people that should know what they're doing, yet no one is willing to take that chance. Now, besides selling off Grayscale's Bitcoin, they have a lot of options. This is some of their assets in terms of DCG. Their Grayscale assets, Genesis assets, Luno, CoinDesk, Foundry, Venture, Liquid, and others. So they do have plenty of other assets. To plug that $1 billion hole, they can technically say sells Venture and Foundry or Venture and Liquid and CoinDesk, right? That's $1 billion right there. If they want to, I'm not even sure what Luno is, but that's $1.5 billion. So they do have other assets. So selling off Bitcoin from Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is kind of like a last resort. And if they're really looking just for $1 billion, they have the assets to back that up. Now, if it's not $1 billion, well then, of course, then it gets trickier. FTX has about $1.24 billion of cash in total, but still owes $3.1 billion. Here's the good news about that. That's way more than the new CEO thought he would find. He thought FTX had zero in cash. But the fact that they have 1.24 billion, that's good. And if they owe 3.1 billion, well, that's to the top 50 creditors. So if you add it up, it could be more. But let's say in best case scenario, they owe only about 3.1 billion and they have 1.24 billion. That's only about 2 billion whole, right? Less than 2 billion whole, which makes funding a lot easier to attain. And FTX does have a lot of businesses. They have over 100 around the world. So the chances of them making it somehow, okay, went from 0% to maybe 2%, 3% now. So, and the situation isn't as bad. No, that doesn't excuse SBF or Carolina or anyone else for causing this disaster in the first place. But maybe they could somehow pull through. Well, you know where he was spending his money? In properties, which technically speaking is the smart move. But when you use clients' money to do so, that's where it's bad. So outside his $45 million mansion, it's been reported he's been buying mansions left and right, including mansions for his parents. So if you look at it, his parents received a $16.4 million vacation home, and there's 19 other properties, okay? Yeah, over 121 million. And he was trying to all convert it because he bought them, I guess, not an FTX name, but he was trying to convert them all into FTX so that it looks like they're business properties, but they're not. So the guy has definitely been spending money. So I mean, he may be not buying the fanciest cars or fanciest shoes, but he's been buying. He's been buying a lot behind the scenes. But just want to give you guys perspective on what he's been doing. And we still have not heard word whether or not he's going to get extradited into the U.S. because there's a big hearing in December, whether or not he's going to be extradited and be facing, whoever, and have to answer for some of the stuff that he said or supposedly said FTX had or did and all this stuff. Who knows what's true and what's not anymore. Binance.us will be bidding for Voyager. And Binance.us said that FTX spread a lot of FUD about Binance saying, oh, they can't participate in the bid because somehow they're not, they can't operate in the U.S. That's completely BS because Binance does have Binance.us, which is a separate entity just in the U.S. alone, and they will be bidding for Voyager since FTX can no longer go through with the acquisition, so we will see. There's been a lot of talk about proof of reserves for the exchanges, right? Even though a lot of exchanges have come out with numbers in terms of how much assets they hold from the users, but they don't really tell you how much is from, well, how much was deposited, let's say, by the users versus how much they actually hold, right? There's no separation. You just know how much they hold right now, but how much was actually deposited? Well, Binance is changing that. So they actually released this in terms of how much they have and, and how much customers deposited, and their reserve ratio is actually 101%. And if you don't believe it, you could actually go verify your own assets on Binance. It uses a Merkle tree and it actually basically makes this whole, setup where it looks like a tree. Starting from the root is like a hash, and then it breaks it down into all the deposits and everything that they have. It's actually pretty cool looking. But they are the first ones, I believe, to do this, to actually verify how much was deposited versus how much they have now, versus just saying how much we have now, like all the other exchanges. Now, I'm sure other exchanges will be following this, but Binance wants to lead the way when it comes to transparency, and that's fantastic. That's fantastic. As for hardware wallets, Binance is making moves in their hardware wallet with a new investment into this other wallet maker called Engrave. Binance doesn't have their own hardware wallet, but they do have their non-custodial wallet, the Trust wallet, which I think is fantastic. But looks like they want to get into hardware game as well.